He grabbed a 100-year-old alien statue as a joke, until it opened its eyes and said, "Finally human." The sound of his own laughter died in his throat, choked off by a sudden, impossible cold. Jax's hand was still wrapped around the statue's arm, a smooth, obsidian-like material that felt more like cool skin than stone. But it wasn't the feel of it that had stolen the air from his lungs. It was the eyes. One moment they were polished, lifeless stone. The next they were open, swirling with the light of a captive nebula, and they were staring right at him. A voice, ancient and sharp as shattered crystal, echoed not in the cavernous bone temple around him, but directly inside his skull. Finally, human. Jax snatched his hand back as if burned. What the fuck? He stumbled backward, his mag boots skidding on the polished femur-tiled floor. Nope. No, I'm high. It's those glowing spores in the lower catacombs. Definitely the spores. He pointed a shaking finger at the figure, which was no longer a statue but a woman. A terrifyingly beautiful, impossibly curvy woman whose skin seemed to drink the dim light of the floating temple. She rose from her pedestal with a liquid grace that defied a century of stillness. She was tall, her body a masterpiece of dangerous curves and honed muscle, clad in nothing but intricate, silver-etched patterns that seemed carved into her very flesh. Her gaze pinned him, analytical and imperious. You are not a hallucination, human. You are the awakener. Your touch initiated the resonance. Her lips, the color of a deep bruise, barely moved, but the voice resonated in his mind, a commanding hum that vibrated through his teeth. She took a step toward him, her movements silent. Every instinct Jax had honed over a decade of scavenging derelict ships screamed at him to run. He was a thief, a smartass who survived by being faster and quieter than anyone else. But his feet were bolted to the floor, held fast by a terror that was rapidly being eclipsed by a primal, bewildering curiosity. Resonance? Lady, the only thing I'm resonating with is a desperate need for a drink and a new line of work. He held his hands up, a gesture of placation that felt utterly useless. Look, my mistake. I thought you were just expensive junk. I'll just see myself out. Her expression didn't change, but the pressure in his head intensified. You will go nowhere. You have accepted the vow. She was in front of him now, close enough that he could feel a strange, static warmth radiating from her skin. She reached out, her long, elegant fingers brushing his jaw. A jolt, hot and electric, shot down his spine. He flinched, but she held him fast. The trial has begun. The pressure in his skull became a physical force, dragging him forward. She wasn't pulling him, yet he stumbled after her as she turned and strode deeper into the temple's echoing halls. Hey, let go of my brain! Jax grunted, fighting the invisible tether. It felt like a hook sunk deep behind his eyes. What trial? I didn't sign up for shit. He was a survivor, not a volunteer for some alien cult's sacrificial game night. He docked his rust bucket ship, the Bad Penny, in the shadow of this floating bone continent to loot relics, not wake up a goddamn golem with a superiority complex. The distant hum of approaching engines, heavier than his own, filtered through the arched bone windows. It was a sound he knew well. Patrol ships. They sensed the resonance, she stated, her voice in his head calm despite the approaching threat. The elders, they will try to stop it. She glanced back at him, her nebula eyes narrowed. You must be stronger than you appear, human. Jax scoffed, yanking against the psychic leash. Oh, I'm a real specimen of martial prowess. My main skills are running away and complaining. You've hit the jackpot. She didn't seem to register his sarcasm. She tugged him into a darkened side chamber, a crypt lined with sarcophagi carved from the ribs of some leviathan beast. The air was thick with the scent of dust and ozone. She pushed him against a cold wall, her body shielding him from the entrance. The proximity was staggering. He was pressed between cold, ancient bone and the impossible warmth of her body. You have a strange scent, Awakener, she noted, her nose near his neck. Sweat, fear, and something else, defiant. Jax swallowed hard, his heart hammering against his ribs. It's called I'd Rather Be Anywhere Else. It's a very popular cologne back on Titan. He tried to push her away, but it was like shoving against a mountain. She was solid, unmovable. The vow of stasis can only be broken by the touch of a being with unclaimed potential. An empty vessel. He bristled at that. Who are you calling empty? I'm full of bad decisions and cheap whiskey. Her lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a human. On her, it was a terrifying promise. Your flippancy is a curious shield. Does it protect you from a worthy death? The thought was sharp, a jab to his ego. It protects me from psychos in rock pajamas who talk in my head. The patrol ship engines grew louder, washing the chamber in shifting red light. Heavy, booted footsteps echoed in the main hall. Voices, guttural and angry, boomed through the temple. The vessel is awake. The unclean has touched the sanctum. Zilia, as he'd decided to call the stone goddess in his head, went rigid against him. A flicker of something, not fear, but a cold, ancient fury, flashed through their connection. He felt a phantom memory of her being forced onto that pedestal, of elders in ceremonial robes chanting as her body hardened into stone, her consciousness trapped in a silent, timeless prison. For the first time, a sliver of empathy pierced his panic. She wasn't just a monster, she was a prisoner, and he was the idiot who'd picked the lock. "You have to get me out of here," he hissed, his sarcasm finally giving way to raw urgency. "I can hotwire their ship, maybe cause a distraction." She looked at him, truly looked at him, and for a second, the imperious alien was gone. He saw a woman who had been alone for 100 years. "The trial must be completed first," she sent, her tone softening with a desperate edge. "Or the resonance will consume us both. The bond is incomplete, it will collapse, and our life forces will extinguish." Jack stared at her. "Wait, what bond? What are you talking about? We die." The casual way she spoke of their impending mutual destruction was infuriating. "You couldn't have led with that? Hi, touch me and we might die. That feels like important information." She tilted her head, a flicker of confusion in her gaze. "It is the highest honor, to be chosen, to complete the union." "Union," he repeated, his voice cracking. "What the hell is the union?" Her nebula eyes scanned his body, a slow, deliberate appraisal that made his skin prickle with heat. The look was not sexual in a way he understood. It was predatory, proprietary. It was the look of a craftsman inspecting a tool she was about to use. "The union of flesh," she clarified, her voice a low thrum in his mind. "It is the final seal, the only way to stabilize the resonance and claim the power of the awakener. We must mate. Now." Jax's brain stalled. He blinked, certain he'd misheard the telepathic death goddess. "Mate? As in, fuck? You want to fuck me or we both die? That's your master plan?" He let out a choked, hysterical laugh. "You've got to be shitting me." Her brow furrowed, the psychic connection filled with a genuine sense of revulsion and clinical curiosity. "Shitting? That is your term for excretion. Is this a pre-coital ritual for your species? Avoiding of the bowels to prepare the body? It seems inefficient." The sheer, literal-minded absurdity of it broke through his panic. He stared at her, dumbfounded. "No, it's an expression. It means you can't be serious." "I am entirely serious, human," she sent, the commanding tone returning. "The elders will breach this chamber within moments. My stasis has left me weakened. Alone, I cannot defeat them. But bonded, we will be more than they can handle. Your raw potential fused with my discipline." He could feel the truth of it humming between them, a frantic energy seeking completion. It was a terrible, seductive logic, power, survival, all for the price of this, him and her, an act that felt less like intimacy and more like disarming a bomb. "I need a minute," he gasped, running a hand through his greasy hair. "Just a fucking minute to process this." Her eyes lit with understanding. Process. A preparatory rite. Very well. But be quick. The moon of sacrifice is rising. She seemed to believe he was performing some vital human pre-mating meditation. The footsteps were just outside the door now, the heavy scrape of metal on bone. There was no time. There was no choice. It was her, or the angry cultists who called him unclean. Jax took a deep breath, the air tasting of her strange, warm scent. "Okay," he whispered more to himself than to her. "Okay, fuck it." The stone door to the reliquary exploded inward, blasted into dust by a concussive charge. 3 figures, broad and imposing in ornate skeletal armor, filled the doorway. Their faces were hidden behind helmets carved to resemble snarling predators. "Blasphemers!" one of them roared, his voice amplified and distorted. "The vessel is tainted. Purge the alien filth!" They raised heavy plasma rifles, the barrels glowing an angry orange. Zelia moved before Jax could even flinch. She was a blur of obsidian skin and silver markings, crashing into the first elder with the force of a meteor. Bone crunched. The elder went down with a wet gurgle. She snatched his rifle and spun, but the other two were already firing. Plasma bolts seared the air, slagging the ancient bone walls. Zelia moved with impossible grace, using the sarcophagi as cover, but she was pinned down. She was strong, but he could feel her energy flagging through the bond. A century of disuse had taken its toll. He was useless, a liability. Then his scavenger brain kicked in. He wasn't a fighter, but he was a goddamn menace with technology. While the elders focused on her, Jack scrambled for the ruined door controls, his multi-tool already in his hand. He ripped the panel open, ignoring the sparks that singed his fingers. Fused relays, fried circuits. He bypassed them, jamming the tool deep into the primary power conduit. "Hey, ugly!" he yelled. "Catch!" He rerouted all the chamber's remaining power into the door's magnetic lock. With a deafening shriek of protesting metal, the massive stone slab opposite the entrance, a 10-ton burial seal, ripped free from its moorings. It hurtled across the room, propelled by a violent magnetic burst. The two remaining elders had no time to react. The slab crushed them against the far wall with a final, sickening crunch. Silence descended, broken only by the hum of dying electronics and their own ragged breaths. Zelia slowly rose from behind her cover, staring at the carnage, then at him. The surprise in her mind was a palpable shockwave. He hadn't just cowered. He had acted. He had saved her. In that moment, the dynamic between them shattered and reformed. She crossed the room in 3 long strides, her nebula eyes blazing with an emotion he couldn't name. It was hunger and respect and something wilder. She grabbed the front of his jacket, hauling him against her. Her strength was absolute. "You are not empty, human," she breathed, her actual voice a low, husky whisper against his skin. "You are a storm." And then she kissed him. It wasn't a kiss of affection. It was a claiming, a brand. Her lips were hot, demanding, and the psychic bond between them erupted into a supernova. Adrenaline, fear, and a century of pent-up desperation slammed into him. His hands came up, gripping her arms as the world dissolved into sensation. "Now," she commanded in his mind. The word, a detonation. "We seal it. Now." The sex was a beautiful, terrifying collision. It wasn't on a bed or even on the floor, but against the cold, carved wall of the reliquary, surrounded by the dead and the dying. It was a desperate, frantic act of survival that bled into something else entirely. His panic and defiance met her controlled, ritualistic purpose, and the two forces broke each other apart. His clothes were an afterthought, torn away with an impatient growl that came from her throat but echoed in his soul. He was all frantic human urgency, and she was an ancient, powerful force, guiding him, dominating him, her body moving against his with a knowledge that felt older than stars. At the peak of it, as his vision blurred and his world narrowed to the feel of her skin and the blazing light of her eyes, their psychic connection fused completely. The POV shifted, ripped from his skull and slammed into hers. For a dizzying second, he wasn't Jax. He was Zelia. He felt her 100 years of silent, cold rage, her pride, her terror of failing her purpose. She felt his crushing loneliness, the hollow space left by a life lived on the run, the bitter humor he used to keep the universe at arm's length. She felt him see her, not as a goddess or a monster, but as a desperate woman, and it shattered her composure. As they climaxed together, a searing white heat coursed through the bond. He cried out as a burning sensation spread across his chest. When he could see again, he looked down. A faint, intricate silver pattern, a mirror of the one on her own skin, was now etched over his heart. A brand, a permanent seal. The union was complete. The aftermath was a deafening silence. They slid to the floor, tangled together, slick with sweat and breathing in ragged unison. The psychic humming between them had changed. It was no longer a frantic, unstable alarm, but a deep, steady thrum, a constant baseline of awareness. He knew without her saying a word, that she was aware of the patrol ships regrouping outside. She knew, without him speaking, that he was staring at the new mark on his skin with a mixture of terror and awe. What did you do to me?" he finally managed to ask, his voice hoarse. His fingers traced the alien marking. It didn't hurt. It felt like a part of him. She pulled back just enough to look at him, her imperious mask gone, replaced by a raw, unsettling vulnerability. Her nebula eyes were wide, seeing him in a way she hadn't before. "I claimed you," she sent, but the thought lacked its earlier arrogance. It was a simple statement of fact tinged with wonder. To complete the ritual. But she paused, and he felt her confusion, her shock. "In the Union, you claimed me as well. Your chaos. It marked me." He could feel it in her. A crack in the ancient certainty. A new variable she had never anticipated. He wasn't just a catalyst. He was a partner. He felt a sudden fierce wave of protectiveness for this impossible, terrifying woman. The elders wanted to purge her, to call her a failure. Fuck that, fuck them. "They're coming back, aren't they?" he said. She gave a slow, mental nod. "They will not accept the union with an outsider. They will shatter the temple before they allow it." "Good," Jack said, a grin spreading across his face. It wasn't his usual smart-ass smirk. This one was sharp, feral. "Let's give them a show." He stood, pulling her up with him. The bond made it effortless, like they were two parts of the same body. The power humming in his veins was intoxicating. It wasn't just his own energy anymore. It was hers, too. Ancient discipline fused with street-smart improvisation. "You know the traps in this place, the secrets?" he asked. She nodded, her gaze locked with his. "Every passage, every weakness. And I know how their tech works," he said, grabbing the multi-tool from the floor. "I can turn their own ship's systems against them." For the first time, he saw a true smile grace her lips. It transformed her face, making her look less like a goddess and more like a warrior, eager for a worthy battle. "They expect a tainted vessel and a filthy scavenger," she sent, the thought ringing with newfound pride. "They will find a bonded pair. They will find their end." They worked together with a preternatural synergy that should have been impossible. There were no wasted words, no misunderstood commands. He'd point to a power conduit, and she would already be moving to expose a hidden control panel he could access. She would describe a structural weakness, and he would immediately know how to exploit it with a targeted energy surge from the remaining patrol rifle. He became the chaos. She became the blade. He rigged the temple's ancient sonic emitters to broadcast on the elders' comm frequency, a deafening shriek that would shatter their focus. She guided him to the load-bearing keystones of the main hall, which he primed with explosive charges salvaged from the dead guards' gear. They were no longer a scavenger and a princess. They were a weapon. As the elders finally breached the temple's main entrance, expecting to find two cowering fugitives, they found only silence. The trap sprung with perfect, brutal efficiency. The sonic shriek hit first, sending the armored elders reeling, clutching their helmets. Before they could recover, Jax triggered the charges. The massive, bone-carved arches of the ceiling didn't just fall. Zelia had shown him how to blow the supports in sequence. The entire structure twisted, collapsing inward, a controlled demolition that turned the grand hall into a death trap. They watched from a high alcove as their plan unfolded, a maelstrom of dust and shrieking metal and shattered bone. It was over in seconds. The threat was neutralized. The silence that followed was absolute. They stood together, side by side, looking out over the destruction they had wrought. The bond between them was a warm, living thing, a permanent link that felt more real than the ground beneath his feet. The future was a terrifying, unknown expanse. He had no ship, no plan, and was soul bonded to an alien warrior princess on a floating continent of bones. He turned to her, the new mark on his chest feeling strangely right. "So," he said, breaking the silence, "what's for breakfast? I'm starving." Zelia looked at him, and the smile that touched her lips was genuine, full of a dangerous shared promise. Whatever the bonded of the Awakener desires.